All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome
Hey.
to the, I believe, fourth Thursday Chatham Community Library virtual open mic. I think I have that right. Um, and I think we got five people here today. We're really excited. We're going to do one more of these this year. We're going to do one in October, and then we're going to go on hiatus until after the holidays. Tell your friends, and we'll see you next. But we have to leave before we can come back, so let's stick around. And if there aren't any questions, I'm just going to get started on this thing. Our first person up on the 3 o'clock slot is Alice Osborne. Alice, I think you're there.
Okay, well, I've been working on my novel. It's called The Reluctant Cannibal, and it's about my hero, William H. Eddy. And here's the very quick synopsis. The ill-fated Donner Party took away William H. Eddy's wife, children, possessions, and almost his dreams. But he overcomes his terrible fortune through hard work and luck to become a prominent and prosperous figure in California during the tumultuous gold rush years. But now new threats, darker than the cold and starvation, seek to destroy him, his wife, and daughter for revenge. And Will Eddy was a real person, and I'm working on historical fiction, being as close to reality as I can. And you're going to hear a 500-word piece, and then I will sing a song that is about one of his traveling companions on the snowshoe party. So pay attention to the word snowshoe party, damn winter, that all refers to the Donner Party, even though he doesn't actually say those words. September 25th, that's tomorrow. September 25th, 1859, Petaluma, California. Will Eddy reined in his exhausted horse beside his darkened home on 35 Liberty Street, a few blocks from the Petaluma River. Will immediately knew Annie wasn't home because if she was, all the lights would be on. That woman didn't know how to conserve resources. He then carried his sleeping daughter and his new favorite rifle inside to his study's couch. Will quickly walked back outside to hitch Goldmine to her post. Good horse. They rode 30 miles today under a smoke-filled sky. Wildfire up at Mount Tamalpais near San Francisco. He patted Goldmine's head and felt her pulse pump below her jaw. Will felt his chest, his own heart pumping in its strange, lumpy pattern. His chest didn't hurt right now, but that could change quickly. The smoke smelled stronger here than back in San Jose, being closer. It was only 6:45, near sunset, and the fires had turned the sky a wild, eerie red. Something unnerving was about to happen. Will could feel it in his knees, toes, and back. He had ventured out to retrieve his daughter from James Reed the same day the fire started 6 days ago. His eyes burned, but he knew it wasn't just from exhaustion and smoke. He walked around the house to the water pump to quench Goldmine's thirst and refill his canteen. A hot breeze looped around his filthy trousers. Ash fell like snow. Snow? He hated snow. He'd deal with the saddlebags and wipe Goldmine down later. Will took a nip of whiskey from his flask and a sip of water from his canteen, and once inside again, kicked off his muddy boots and tossed his floppy cowboy hat onto the wall peg. If Annie were home, she'd start complaining about the ash getting on their, or rather her, nice furniture. Lord, he stank and his feet hurt, especially his left foot, where he'd lost 2 toes to frostbite. Snowshoe party, Truckee Lake. That damn winter's what he called it now. Will swallowed more whiskey. Had it been 13 years already? Too much had happened, yet maybe not enough. No, he wasn't a drunkard. He just liked his whiskey. He could hear Annie's shrill voice admonishing for his necessary habit that numbed him ever so effectively. He had quit smoking his pipe a long time before because the sweet tang of the tobacco reminded him of death. He'd replaced that pleasure with drinking. In his study, his daughter stirred and bolted awake. Will hoped the opiate had worn off. He felt guilty for not wanting an unruly child on his hands for almost 90 miles. Nellie looked puzzled. Eddie, where am I? Somehow Nellie had decided that Eddie would be his name, not father or dad or daddy. When he last saw her at 5 years old, she called him Daddy. He remembered feeding her twice a night when she was a little bitty thing. During their trip, when she was awake, she didn't speak much or utter his name at all. Will didn't mind. At least he had his daughter back, even if he did have to steal her from James Reed. Would Reed actually send his bounty hunters after them, or was it all empty threats? Will wished he hadn't pulled his new Sharps rifle on his ex-best friend, but what choice did he have? Lighting the gas lamps in his study, Will sighed, noticing there was nothing on the walls but Annie's dainty flower paintings. He had given away all his deer, moose, and bear head mounts when he sold his home in San Jose and left for St. Louis. He dearly missed those manly things. Shh, hush now, Nellie, you're safe. We're home in Petaluma. He noticed a folded note on the table beside the sofa, his name boldly penned on the outside in careful script, in India ink, the good stuff, and on good stationery. It was addressed to Mr. Henry Eddy, Esquire. Annie didn't know Henry was his middle name and not his first. Oh man, I can't say it. Damn it, Eddie, we're in such big trouble. Mr. James is going to hang you for sure. I don't want to go back there. First you kidnapped me at rifle point and then you drugged me. Good thing I remembered you from when I was little and gave you benefit of the doubt. It won't be long, though, before the bounty hunters come get me. I'm your father, and you're home now. Your real home. He reached out to hold his daughter's shoulder, but she shrugged him off, his hand recoiling as if he touched a hot stove. Nellie shifted positions on the sofa and tried to stand up, but fell back again, still groggy from the drug. It's not fair. You can't just show up and say you're my father after you've been gone my whole life. After all the kids say I'm a bastard, it's not fair. Will brought Nellie a blanket, but she pushed it away so it landed on the pine wood floor, the one he'd laid by hand and still had the scar on his thumb to prove it. Why didn't you get me before? So she did want to leave San Jose. Stupid reasons. I'm sorry to let you down, Nellie, but you're here now. Those stupid reasons included his Annie, his third wife. He was trying to save his marriage, which had been good. It had been pre-damn winter good. After having a horribly realistic dream in which he died from a fall in a frozen lake, and Nellie never knew him, Will decided they had to move back to California in order to rebuild a relationship with his daughter before it was too late. But he hadn't considered all his lies will come back to bite him in the ass. Okay, and then this song is the new song I just wrote. It's called A Forlorn Hope, and it's about the snowshoe party that Will Eddy was the leader of. And it's not from his perspective. It's from Mary Ann Graves, who was 20 years old, and she was very, very brave. So she was one of his traveling companions. And the song starts with a opening poem from a 14th century poet. In my own country, in a far-off land, my heart seeks something I don't understand. In the morning, I'd rather sleep, grab my snowshoes, a mountain so steep. I pause a moment, it's a painter's scene. The sun warms and turns bitter cold, reflects off the powdered snow and blinds Mr. Stanton, the bravest man I know. You won't push me down or steal me today. My doubts all swirl, but I fling them away. I carry the lost, I carry the blind, I carry the ghost. I am the hope. Packs on our weary backs, like Norwegians among the ice stacks. I've come too far to return to camp and hear the desperate cries of hunger from my sisters and my brothers. Mr. Stanton puffs his pipe, watches the moon. You won't push push me down or steal me today. My doubts all swirl, but I fling them away. I carry the lost, I carry the blind, I carry the whole ghost. I am the whole. I'm about as near heaven as I can get. The first hell wants its pound of flesh, walking somewhere in between, too far from where I used to be. The last one to see our friend alive. We can't control anything except our minds. Nothing's real when everything is white. Well, I'm so weak, but I have power. If I survive, it'll be my second life. The one before no longer matters. You won't push me down or steal me today. My doubts all swirl, but I fling them away. I carry the lost, I carry the blind, I carry the ghost. I am the whole. I carry the lost, I carry the blind, I carry the ghost. I am the forlorn, forlorn, forlorn hope. I carry the lost, I carry the blind, I carry the ghost. I am the forlorn hope.
Next up, we have Marie Vanderbeck. I believe I see Marie getting her guitar ready. So what do you got for us this time, Marie?
I'll start out with one of my up songs. I have very few up songs. Most of my songs are sad, mining, death and dying songs. Trucks. But this is one of my up songs. When I get the blues, I get me a rocking chair. When I get the blues, I get me a rocking chair. I'm going down the river, rock away from here. I'm gonna flip, flop and fly. I don't care if I die. I'm gonna flip, flop and fly. Don't care if I die. Don't ever leave me, don't ever say goodbye. Well, now here comes my baby flashing that new gold tooth. Well, here comes my baby flashing that new gold tooth. You gotta watch that guy, gonna run his game on you. I'm gonna flip, flop and fly. I don't care if I die, I'm gonna flip, flop and fly. Don't care if I die. Don't ever leave me, don't ever say goodbye. I'm like a Mississippi bullfrog sitting on a hollow stump. I'm like a Mississippi bullfrog sitting on a hollow stump. I got so many men I don't know which way to jump. I'm gonna flip, flop and fly. I don't care if I die, I'm gonna flip, flop and fly. Don't care if I die. Don't ever leave me, don't ever say goodbye. Don't ever leave me, don't ever say goodbye.
Yeah!
Love that.
That's fun. That's an oldie, like 1930s or something like that.
It's one of my favorite mining songs.
Oh, yeah.
That goes
Good,
with
you want
the
me-
theme of today, right? The California gold and
Yeah, something like that. So this next song was written by a woman by the name of Kate Long, and I was very honored to be in the audience when she introduced it many years back. And it's called Who'll Watch the Home Place? leaves are falling and turning in showers of gold as the postman climbs up our long hill. And there's sympathy written all over his face as he hands me a couple more bills. Who'll watch the home place? Who'll tend my heart's dear space? Who'll fill this empty place when I am gone from here? There's a lovely green nook by a clear running stream. It was my place when I was quite small, and its creatures and sounds could soothe my worst pains. But today they don't ease me at all. Who'll watch the home place? Who'll tend my heart's dear space? Who'll fill this empty place when I am gone from here? In my grandfather's shed there are hundreds of tools. I know them by feel and by name. Like parts of my body they've patched this old place. If I move them they won't be the same. Who'll watch the home place? Who'll tend my heart's dear space? Who'll fill this empty place when I am gone from here? Now I wander around touching each blessed thing, the chimney, the tables, the trees, and memories swirl around me like birds on the wing. When I leave here, oh, who will I be? Who'll watch the home place? Who'll tend my heart's dear space? Who'll fill this empty place when I am gone from here?
Oh, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you. She wrote a beautiful song.
Marie, you still have like 5 minutes left in your time if you have
Okay.
another song.
I do.
Excellent.
So, I love traveling around the Appalachian Mountains and collecting lots and lots of old stories and old songs. And this is one that I have really, really loved. And I'm going to do this a cappella. It's called Pretty Sorrow. And it's done from the perspective of a man who has left his country. When I first come to this country back in 1849, I saw many fair love years, but I never saw mine. I viewed it all around me, saw that I was quite alone, and me a poor stranger, and a long way from home. Well, it's not this long journey I'm dreading for to go, nor this country I'm leaving, nor the debts that I owe. There's only one thing that tortures my mind. It's leaving my darling Pretty Sorrow behind. Fare thee well to old mother, fare thee well to father too. I'm bound for to travel this wide world all through, and when I get weary, I'll just lay down and I'll die, and I'll think of my sorrow, my bride. Now if I were a poet and could write a fine hand, I'd write my love a letter that she might understand. I'd send it by the waters where the islands overflow, and dream of my darling, my sorrow, my love. Well, I wish I was a turtle dove, had wings and could fly. Just now to my love's lodging, tonight I'll draw nigh, and in her lily white arms I'd lay there all night, and I'd watch the little windows for the dawning of day. When I first come to this country back in 1849, I saw many fair lovers, but I never saw mine. I view it all around me, saw that I was quite alone, and me a poor stranger, and a long way from home. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we have next up on our docket is one Anita Collins. Am I pronouncing that right?
That was very good.
Thank you. All right, what do you have for us today, Anita?
Today I have the first half of a story that I'm working on. It's called Morning, Noon, and Night, which will make no sense as I read this because I'm probably going to lose that title eventually. But thanks to the Chatham Community Library for giving us this chance to exercise our creative muscles and get out there a little bit and keep at it. Okay, I guess I will read. Any day now, the hospice nurse had said, but still the weeks dragged on. Patty put down the stack of towels she was carrying and sat down in the chair beside Elaine's bed, and she reached over the guardrail to hold her hand. Patty's back twinged from the awkward position, but Elaine's son, Alex, had threatened to fire her if she put the bed rail down again. Elaine could no more roll out of bed than she could fly to the moon, but Patty did as she was told. She needed this job. Elaine's husband and son had gone out for breakfast. The husband, who asked Patty to call him Mr. Bradley instead of by his first name, used to be head of a manufacturing company, and he wasn't used to being trapped in the house. He jumped at any excuse to get out. The son, Alex, had flown in from the West Coast to spend these last days with his mother, even though most of the time he was upstairs working on his computer. Patty was grateful Elaine's hospital bed had been set up in the library with its wall of windows overlooking Grandfather Mountain. This assignment was the best job Patty had ever had. She almost didn't get it, though. When she showed up for her first shift, Mr. Bradley had looked her up and down and immediately picked up his phone to call the agency. She knew what she looked like to him. She had the body of a grandmother, busty and thick around the middle, but with tattoos peeking out of the neck of her scrubs. The agency talked Mr. Bradley into giving her a chance, and she'd proven herself that day and all the days after. She was strong enough to lift Elaine by herself and knew when to blend into the woodwork. The Bradleys kept it quiet in the house. Alex spent most of his days upstairs, so Patty often forgot he was even there. And while Mr. Bradley stayed in the library with his wife, he didn't want conversation with Patty. So most times the only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall outside the library and the rustle of Mr. Bradley's paper. Julia. Elaine's whisper made Patty jump. Elaine was staring at a spot just outside the doorway that led to the shadowy hallway. Her teeth were in a glass on the bedside table, making her harder to understand than usual, but Patty understood this word, Julia. The word sent a tingle down Patty's spine. Elaine's daughter, Julia, dead nearly 60 years, had been visiting more and more over the last weeks, as had Elaine's father, her two older sisters, and someone named Howard no one could quite identify. These visits spooked the other caregivers, but Patty just took it as a sign that Elaine's time was getting close. Patty's own mother, towards the end, had regular visits from Patty's little brother, who had drowned when he was 12. Elaine turned her watery blue eyes back to Patty, who was still holding her hand over the bed rail. Elaine loved music, so Patty started singing an old Janis Joplin song to her. Believe in your brother. Have faith in man. Help each other, honey, if you can. Patty's voice was low and scratchy in her own ears, but Elaine hung on every note. Elaine fell asleep after just a few verses, her exhales pushing little puffs of air through her lips. Patty put Elaine's hand down on the bed covers, stood, and stretched her sore back. Elaine would sleep for a time, and Mr. Bradley and Alex had only been gone a few minutes, so she had at least an hour to explore the house and see what she could see. This morning, she wanted to look at Elaine's bedroom. She'd popped in once to gather Elaine's pajamas, but hadn't had a chance to really look around. Now that the hospice nurse had said, any day now, she thought she'd better take her chance before her time here was over. Patty climbed the stairs and walked through the double doors that opened to the master bedroom. She started with the closet, opening a door that led to a room big enough to be called a bedroom in Patty's apartment. One wall of the closet had two long metal bars that held 2 rows of hanging clothes, sorted into shirts, skirts, slacks, dresses, and coats. Patty ran her fingers along them, touching the fabrics, wool, cotton, silk. Among the coats were half a dozen furs, sorted in color from white to dark brown. Furs are not as soft as they look, Patty discovered. The far wall was lined with shelves filled with purses and stacks of neatly folded sweaters. Patty took her time and touched everything that caught her eye, running her fingers along the tops of the stacks of sweaters, lightly touching the pearl buttons and baby soft wool. Against the third wall were racks and racks of shoes. Each pair looked new, barely a scuff mark to be found. Taking care to leave everything as she found it, Patty walked back into the bedroom and closed the closet door behind her. She stroked the silk duvet on the bed and the mahogany dressers. She slipped her shoes off so she could walk barefoot on the Persian rug. She walked to the vanity where she found hairbrushes and combs, crystal perfume bottles, a silver tray of makeup, and a red lacquered box. The hairs trapped in the brushes showed that the vanity wasn't just for show. Elaine used to sit here to do her hair and put on makeup. Patty pulled out the low frilly chair and sat on it, pulling herself close to the mirror. She picked up the hairbrush and brushed it through her hair. She'd have liked to experiment with the perfume and makeup, but didn't dare. Mr. Bradley might notice if she came down smelling like his wife. She settled for opening each bottle of perfume and sniffing it, and opening every box and tube on the makeup tray. She opened the lacquer box to see and touch what was inside. 3 silver rings, a ticket stub for South Pacific, 1 gold cufflink, a pair of dangly earrings, 3 gold Legos, 1 pink Barbie shoe. Exploring this room might have occupied Patty for weeks, but it was time to be getting back downstairs. Elaine might be waking up, and Mr. Bradley and his son would be back any minute. Patty slipped the silver hairbrush and an empty crystal bottle into her sweater pocket. After Elaine passed, these things would just be donated to the thrift store, and besides, Elaine would want Patty to have something to remember her by. In her months of exploring, Patty had collected a set of stainless steel measuring spoons, a small wooden angel with hair of yellow silk, an unopened package of pink washcloths, a pair of fuzzy pink socks, and a tiny crystal rabbit. What she couldn't take, she touched. The mahogany grand piano, the silk carpets, the tablecloths of Belgian lace. If asked why, which she hoped she never would be, she'd have a hard time explaining. She didn't take anything of value. She didn't do it for the money. She'd taken things from every house she'd ever worked in, and most were far less elegant than this one. And it wasn't that she wanted souvenirs of her time here or remembrances of the people she'd cared for. She really couldn't say why. She tried not to think about it too much.
Well, Anita Collins, thank you for joining us, and I hope you'll do it again many, many times. And next up, we have Christine Shia, and I believe I see you, Christine. You are muted at the moment. There you go.
No, I am not.
All right.
All right. Thanks for letting me read today. And Nita cued me in, and I'm so pleased to meet you all and hear your work. It's very inspiring. I've been working on a series of stories, and I'm interested in how people get stuck in their stories. And this is called Book of Days, and each month is a sort of profile of a character. And the character is usually has something happen in their lives that sort of bring them to a certain reckoning with something in their own personal stories. And I'm not going to get deep into this. It's just an introduction of my first character, Margaret, who I'm a bit taken by. She's an older lady. And it's called When January Comes. When January comes, there are 3 kinds of frost on Margaret's window. The layer on the inside, made from the steam of her hot morning bath, always taken at 5. The layer on the outside, a dim-lit gray that reflects the snowy January sky. And the layer in between the panes, made of formulated crystallized rods that stretch out across the glass, resembling broken snowflakes. Those who walk the icy sidewalks just before daybreak might look up to her window and see the shadow of her solitary figure, surrounded by the golden glow of her kitchen light, waiting, not like a predator, more like a collie watching for a wandering sheep to make its way back to the herd. Margaret's 3rd-story apartment looks out over East Main in a little bedroom college town made of red bricks and coffee houses, art centers, and bicycle paths. Every morning about 7:30 a.m., just after she's done her morning Pilates, eaten a sensible breakfast, and conversed with the great ombudsman upstairs, the 81-year-old woman curls up in her window seat with a large cup of coffee and waits for Loopy. He usually emerges from the corner bakery, half flour-coated from his early morning toil in the kitchen, jangling a large cascade of keys as he opens the door for business. Not that Loopy is his real name. The sign over his door says, Boucher, but to Margaret, Boucher sounds like a solid, pudgy kind of guy, and this man is tall and lanky like a Gumby doll. She named him Loopy because he keeps all his keys in a great loop that he attaches to his belt, and is always having to search through them to find the right one to put in the door. She finds this habit endearing, and the fact that he is always talking to himself while searching for the right key. The moment Loopy pulls his keys from the lock and props the bakery door open, Margaret experiences a strange inner relief. It's as if a signal has been made for life to go on as normal. The day has been granted permission to unfurl. The clocks may go on ticking. The water may rise through the pipes. The newspapers can hit the concrete and collect the past into history. And so it goes every morning, Margaret rising and waiting, Loopy unlocking, and life flowing. A friend, once learning of this ritual, told Margaret she was superstitious. I prefer to think of it as disciplined, Margaret replied archly, gently touching the St. Hubert's key pendant that she wore around her neck daily, the one that Edgar had bought her. By 8:30 a.m., bicycles whirl, cars hum along, and pedestrians fill the streets with steaming cups of coffee and large pastries in their hands. As backpack-laden university students make their way down the street in time for class, Margaret paces by her window to catch sight of her favorites that walk among the crowd. There's one young man. She's decided he must be a musician because of the elongated duffel pack that he straps on his back. He rides a bike and wears sunglasses, which look like flying goggles. He tucks his jeans into his white socks on the inside of his legs so as not to catch the bike chain. Calls him Mike because it combines the words music and bike. Then there's the young woman, African American, who wears a candy-colored overcoat and matching heels and is always plugged into a musical device. She sings to herself. She drags a rolling purple stewardess bag stuffed with books behind her. Margaret calls her Violet because of the purple bag and marvels at how she manages to keep her earphones from tangling up with her extravagant earrings. Then there's Vincent, a stocky Chinese student that Margaret named after a boy she once knew. She didn't find Vincent very handsome at first, but during the fall semester, she became enchanted with his liveliness and wonderful facial expressions when he talked with his friends. He always made jokes or waved cheerily to people around him. Right before Christmas, she saw him stop and help a distraught middle-aged woman who had lost her keys right outside of Loopy's. He walked right up to the crying woman, asked her what was wrong, and then pulled out a handkerchief for her. He made a few calls and waited with the woman, gently chatting with her until the locksmith arrived. Of course, the woman offered him money. Of course, Vincent refused. He was that type of boy. Since then, Margaret has been completely besotted with him. She's often imagined having him up for tea, but wouldn't know what in the world to say to him. In any case, Margaret doesn't like being seen. She never goes down to the street during rush hour. 2 years ago she did, but that was because she was caught off guard. It was in the middle of July, and Loopy was more than 3 hours late in opening his doors, and it nearly killed Margaret in the waiting. She was about to call the police. All kinds of horrible thoughts had entered her mind. Loopy being held prisoner by robbers, or perhaps bleeding to death on the floor. Finally, torn between being a good citizen or a crazy, interfering old woman, she decided it would be okay to be the latter and sprinted down to the street, pushing her way in between confused pedestrians. She almost pushed a man off the crosswalk before she arrived at Loopy's front door, only then spotting the sign of explanation, closed for a vacation until July 16th. Thoroughly embarrassed, she started laughing at the absurdity of her mistake. She tumbled backwards, accidentally bumping into a woman and her preschool-age son. He was pudgy, with a round face, bright brown eyes, and ringlets of brown hair. He looked like a little cherub. A recognition stirred deep in Margaret, and she said, "Oliver," and reached toward him. The boy was confused by Margaret's strange expression and backed up, fearful. His reaction brought Margaret back to reality, and she jerked her arm back and apologized to the mother, who nodded kindly, her eyes riveted on Margaret's face. Margaret tried her best to remain gracious, but she knew it was an impossible situation. The year before, a stroke had left the right side of Margaret's face droopy, so that her eyes seemed to sag and her lips, which were always thick and slightly protruding, stretched downward like a sad clown's. The left side of her face was still intact and quite mobile, but that didn't make it easier for people to look at her. She imagined she must have looked like a half theater mask to the boy, with one side comic laughter and the other side frozen in tragic defeat from her stroke. The boy started crying, so the mother lifted him up hastily and moved quickly down the street. Margaret watched as their figures melted into the flowing crowd of patrons bustling along the sidewalks, and she felt a growing sense of loss. "Oliver," she said again, the name sticking in her throat. Her body felt heavy. She wished she could float outside of herself as she felt strangers pushing in around her on the sidewalk. The squeak and hiss of the town garbage truck moved down the street beside her. Margaret's ears caught something else, the sound of someone whistling. She knew the pitch, the melody. Un bel divadrimo, Madame Butterfly. She turned to the source of whistling, desperately looking for the owner and its beautiful sound, but the truck started back up again, and the sound of its hydraulics drowned out the beautiful tune. Once again, Margaret was left standing amongst the crowd, lost and alone.
Wow.
Yes. With y'all's permission, I'd like to do a song, and then we'll wrap it up for the day. If that's cool with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. Y'all hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So this is a recent-ish song, and I would have played it out, except that we don't play out these days.
No.
And the song is called "Look Out." It goes like this. Look out for the people who love you, 'cause I never knew love to be loud. I've been squinting in the faces for 70 years, and I could never pick it out of a crowd. When your eyes acclimate to the carnival noise, you can make out the pretty from the true. Then look out for the people who love you. They're looking for you too. And then look out for the people who love you. they'll never be gone. And they give it up for nothing, and then you get to earn it. Use their hearts like a muscle. Just watch how they turn on you, and then brother, look out for the people who love you, 'cause you gave them the keys to your life. If you got a scar on your spirit, somebody who loved you is probably holding the knife. It's right there in the name of the contract. It's engineered to be misunderstood. Yeah, look out for the people who love you. They can mess you up good. Yeah, look out for the people who love you, 'cause I never could. Hope to see you guys back again in October.
Yep.
And then we're going to take a little hiatus through the holidays, and then we'll start up again early next year. But it's been a pleasure hanging with you guys, and we'll see you next month, I hope.
Okay.
It was lovely. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
You-
Right.